April 26, 2003. Blue John Canyon, Utah. The morning sun crept over a vast desert of rust-red stone and dusty canyons. The only sound for miles was the whisper of wind brushing through crevices carved by thousands of years of water and time. Amid this ancient silence, a lone man moved confidently through the landscape. His name was Aron Ralston, and he had no idea that within hours, his life would change forever. Aron was no stranger to danger. At 27 years old, he had already earned a reputation among friends and fellow adventurers for his daring solo climbs and backcountry hikes. He was a mechanical engineer by training, but his heart belonged to the wilderness. He had quit his job at Intel just a year earlier to pursue a life filled with summits, solitude, and the raw beauty of the outdoors. In Colorado, where he lived, he had set himself a challenge: climb all 59 of the state's 14ers, mountains over 14,000 feet, solo and in winter. Few had ever done it. Even fewer had tried it alone. Ralston thrived on risk. But with risk comes consequence. And that morning in Utah, as he parked his truck just off Route 313 without telling a single soul where he was going, he was rolling the dice with his own fate. He packed lightly: some energy bars, 2 burritos, a few liters of water, a headlamp, a cheap multi-tool, climbing gear, a digital camera, and a handheld camcorder. He wore a blue tank top, cargo shorts, and a bandana, the image of someone perfectly at ease in the desert heat. He didn't leave a note. Didn't check in with a ranger station. No GPS beacon. No cell phone. Just his instincts and his confidence. The plan was simple: bike a short trail to the canyon, stash the bike, then hike through the twisting narrows of Blue John Canyon and loop back. A half-day trip, maybe less. Ralston was moving with rhythm and ease, absorbing the silence of the canyon walls, letting the world fall away behind him. The slot canyon narrowed around him like a throat, the towering sandstone stretching high above, glowing in the mid-morning light. He paused to take pictures, smiling into his camera. Somewhere in those images, you can still see a man at peace, unaware that he's walking straight into a moment that will become one of the most famous survival stories of all time. As he descended a narrow crevice, his right hand gripping the wall, his left shifting his weight across a boulder, it happened. A rock, massive, heavy, about the size of a refrigerator, shifted beneath his feet. It broke loose, crashing down with him as he fell. He landed awkwardly in the crevice. And the boulder pinned his right arm to the canyon wall. The pain shot through him like lightning. He screamed, instinctively trying to pull away, but it was no use. His arm was trapped between the rock and the wall. The boulder had wedged itself perfectly into the gap, locking his arm like a vice. He struggled, panicked. He yanked, twisted, used every ounce of strength to free himself. Nothing moved. Not even a millimeter. He was stuck. Time crawled forward. He examined the situation. The boulder was at least 800 pounds, much more than his entire body weight. His feet were on solid ground, but he couldn't get enough leverage to lift or shift the rock. He tried to wedge his climbing gear beneath it, create a makeshift lever. Still nothing. The more he tried, the more it became clear, he wasn't getting out. The desert was deathly quiet. For the first time, Ralston realized no one knew where he was. No one would be looking for him. Not today. Not tomorrow. Maybe not ever. But he wasn't ready to die. Not yet. That first night was long. The temperature dropped sharply in the canyon. He wrapped himself as best he could, conserving energy, planning his next attempt. At sunrise, he tried again. He chipped at the rock with his multi-tool, hoping to shape the edge or create space. The knife blade bent, dulled, and eventually snapped. The boulder remained immovable. He rationed his water. Just 350 milliliters. He took small sips. His food, 2 burritos and a few snacks, he divided carefully. He knew he was on borrowed time. By the second day, dehydration began to set in. His mouth was dry. His tongue thick. His thoughts came slower, heavier. Still, he kept working on the rock. Still, he tried to film messages to his family. He spoke into the camcorder, documenting what he could. "Mom, Dad," he whispered. "I didn't mean for this to happen." At night, he hallucinated. He saw lights, heard voices, dreamed of rainstorms that never came. By the third day, he knew the arm was dying. It had turned gray, numb, lifeless. The skin was pale. He couldn't move his fingers. He tried to snap the bone, using the torque of his body and the wall, but couldn't get the angle. Each morning, he greeted the sun with a sense of increasing despair. He drank the last of his water. Eventually, he resorted to drinking his own urine, filtering it through the camelback. It was foul, but it was something. His strength was failing. His mind flickered in and out of lucidity. But still, he talked to the camera. He smiled. He cracked jokes. He gave his full name, social security number, details for his funeral. He wasn't giving up. He was preparing. Then came the vision. It came on the fifth night, a dream, maybe. Or something more. He saw himself, one-armed, walking with a little boy across a sunlit field. It felt real. He felt the child's hand in his left. And when he woke, there was a new resolve in him. He wasn't going to die in that canyon. Not without doing everything possible. The next morning, as the sun climbed high overhead, Ralston prepared to do the impossible. He used his body weight to torque his arm. He twisted. He leaned. And suddenly, he felt it. Snap. The radius broke. He gasped. Snap. The ulna followed. The pain was blinding, but he was calm. The worst part was over. The bones were broken. Now he could cut. He unhooked the multi-tool. The blade was dull, almost useless. Still, he started cutting. Through the skin. Through muscle. Through tendon. His nerves screamed in agony. He passed through layers of tissue, slowly, methodically. Blood poured from the wound, but he had prepared a tourniquet from climbing rope and anchored it tightly. Then he reached the nerve bundle. He described it later like plunging your arm into a vat of liquid fire, but he didn't stop. He finished cutting. Severed the final piece. And then, he was free. After 5 days and 7 hours of captivity, Aron Ralston stood, one arm missing, blood soaking his shirt, and he walked out of Blue John Canyon. But he wasn't safe yet. He had to rappel down a 65-foot cliff using his left arm. Then hike nearly 7 miles across scorching desert. He was dizzy, pale, barely conscious. And still, he kept moving. At last, he encountered a Dutch family hiking through the area. They gave him water, alerted authorities. A helicopter rescue team arrived within an hour. Ralston was rushed to a hospital. His body was ravaged by dehydration and blood loss. But he was alive. Doctors later said if he'd waited just a few more hours, he likely would have died. The news spread fast. Man cuts off own arm to survive, made headlines across the globe. Some were shocked. Some were skeptical. But most were simply stunned. How far could a human being go to survive? For Ralston, the answer was all the way. He spent weeks in recovery, physically and emotionally. He later returned to Blue John Canyon, not out of hatred or fear, but respect. He left part of his prosthetic arm wedged in the same spot, and the park rangers allowed the boulder to stay where it fell. He had become part of that place, and it part of him. His memoir, Between a Rock and a Hard Place, became a bestseller. And in 2010, his story was immortalized in the film 127 Hours, starring James Franco. The movie depicted every agonizing moment of his ordeal, and introduced a new generation to the unrelenting will of a man who simply refused to die. Ralston has gone on to climb Denali, ski down mountains in the Andes, and speak across the world about survival, purpose, and the power of choice. He says the most important thing he ever did wasn't cutting off his arm, it was taking full responsibility for his decisions. And in doing so, finding peace. For many, his story is a warning: never hike alone, never go unprepared. But for others, it's something more. It's a reminder that sometimes, survival isn't about muscles or gear or training. It's about the mind, the will, the choice to live, no matter what. In the canyon where Aron Ralston nearly died, the rocks are silent. But if they could speak, they would tell the story of a man who left behind more than blood and bone. He left behind proof, etched in stone, in legend, and in flesh, that even when trapped by the weight of the world, the human spirit can still find a way to break free. If this story gripped you the way it gripped the world back in 2003, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to Lore of the Multiverse, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next unbelievable survival tale. Because sometimes, truth is far more intense than fiction. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.